Hey Internet, this will be the third video in my series talking about how to begin a career as a composer and sound designer, and this section will focus on pricing, the things to be aware of when you are pricing, and the different ways in which you can price, and kind of the benefits and difficulties that each option has with itself. So here you go. All right, pricing. So how do we price for our work? If you are a sound designer, lots of sound folk price per sound effect. So if you have a game and let's say there's 400 assets that you need to create for it or something, they will usually have a rate per sound effect, times that by however many assets they need to create, and then there you go. So per sound effect, you want me to make a sound effect for you, that's $25 or that's $60 or whatever it happens to be. Mind you, this is not, I made a sound effect, they didn't like it, so then if they want me to make another one, that's another sound effect. That's the number of complete and accepted sound effects accepted by the team that are going into the game. So part of that agreement is agreeing on how many iterations you're willing to make as the sound designer. So you're going to make 400 assets at $30 per sound effect, and maybe each sound asset has 3 iterations. So you'll create one, and then you'll create 2 additional versions of it if the developer doesn't like it for whatever reason. If you're a composer, many composers operate on a per minute of music basis. Again, keep in mind, is this work for hire? Is this exclusive? Is this non-exclusive? And same thing for per sound effect. Are you giving ownership of that sound effect to the developer, or are you maintaining ownership and you can sell it elsewhere? But for music, keep in mind what rights you're giving up, and then usually rates are anywhere between $100 to $2,000 per minute of music. And it depends on whether you're going to be involved with the final production of the music, whether you're going to be hiring live instruments, and whether this needs to pay for a recording session, or whether it's you creating things through MIDI mockups, or there's a whole slew of things to keep in mind when you actually have the rate that you create, but it's usually between $100 to $2,000 per minute. And most of the time, your rate is going to include all of the costs for creating the music. So bear in mind what you're going to do, how much money it's going to take to do all of that stuff. Then, on the composer side of things, per track is a method of pricing that's used a lot for working with libraries. So there will be a library that will come to me and say, hey, we need an album of this type of music. We need 12 tracks, and we'll pay you, like $300 per track or whatever it happens to be. So at that point, I then go ahead and create the music for that, and I'm not giving it to them on a work for hire basis. Most of those are an exclusive license, and I'm retaining royalties. And in an arrangement like this, usually tracks will be between $100 to $3,000 per track, and it varies widely depending on your leverage in the industry, what type of music it is, how involved it is, the library that you're working for, all of that sort of stuff. Then there is the option to work on a per project basis. And many times people will use the per sound effect and per minute of music methods to generate their per project rate. But this per project rate essentially means I'm just going to make it happen. Like there's usually no iteration limits or anything. It's this amount of money and we're just going to make it happen. Because of the format of games, and the fact that the development process usually has them changing scope and working things around a lot, I find that giving a per project fee works best in the games industry. That's just my opinion, though. I'm sure there are many people that disagree and have phenomenal reasons as to why they disagree. But in my experiences, this works best. And then lastly, there is a revenue share option. And this is an option for both film as well as games. And essentially, you agree to receive a percentage of the funds that the game or film or whatever project generates. I tend to avoid this like the plague, especially in the realm of games, because it's only, I think, between 9 and 12% of all games that end up on Steam actually generate a profit of some type. So that becomes very important when you're talking about the percentages, and what type of profits as well. If we look at gross profits, that's the total amount of money that this project generates, while net is the total amount of money that this project generates minus its costs, right? So it's the actual money that is generated past what it costs to create the thing. And if only about 9 to 12% of all games on Steam are having any net profit, well, then you need to really think a lot about whether this team is going to be successful and whether the game is going to be successful to where that revenue share will amount for something besides 0%. So I personally avoid it as much as I can for that reason. And also, I prefer developers that are very serious and specific in how they manage their projects and plan for all of their needs before they start working on a game. Also, to make you aware, every music track deal has a number of components to it. There's a master recording, so that is the actual audio file itself. There's the underlying composition, so the actual piece of music that was realized by this master recording. If you're working with a library, or like say there's a commercial house that contacts you to write some music to pitch for a spot, they will have a demo fee associated with them. So a commercial house contacts me, sends me a brief, and says, hey, we need this music. Can you get it to us in, sometimes it's as quick as a day, but we'll just say 2 days. I'll create the track, they'll pay me a demo fee, and then if my track is selected by the client, I will then get what's called the sync fee. And the sync fee is what a outlet pays in order to use your music with their visual. So they're not purchasing any sort of ownership of the music itself. They're just saying, we want to purchase the right to use this with our visual. And that's what that sync fee is. And most of the time that ends up being the largest portion of any transaction from a music standpoint. So once your music is used with this visual, let's say it's broadcast on a commercial, all over the place, that will generate writer and publisher public performance royalties. And depending on the structure of the agreement that you have with the commercial house as well as the client, you may be getting different amounts of royalties depending on what you've agreed upon. In fact, you can actually act as your own publisher, even though you were the composer on this. Hey Internet, this is a quick reminder that the video you just watched is one in a series on starting a career as a composer and sound designer. I created about an hour-long talk and sliced it up into different topics, so as those videos become available, be sure to check them out. If you have a question on anything, feel free to throw that in the comments, and if you'd like some game, audio, music implementation goodness in your inbox every once in a while, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much.